Ciao Bambini, ciao Colin. How's your week?
It's been pretty good. Could not tell you what I've done. It feels like I was just sitting on that seat 23 seconds ago. So here we
Right?
are, like
Right? Yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. Good. The chat is going. I can see people talking. Very nice. So welcome to the tree. I'm keeping an eye on the chat because we almost had a classic beginning technical difficulty, but geniuses that we are, we sorted it out before we began.
And it was definitely not anyone in particular's problem. Certainly
Nope.
not me.
Nope. We were both somehow blameless.
Yes, it's like Zoom. Okay, it's not as good as everyone thinks it is.
Exactly. All right. So you worked on a bunch of stuff actually this week, which seems to happen as
Yes.
we move through the cards. There's plenty of things to review. Shall we start with the ship? Shall we start with, dare we say, the good news?
The good news. Yeah, let's actually.
All right, all right. So I'm just gonna switch over to ship screen grab. Talk again. I'll just make sure we haven't begun. Say something else, Colin.
Oh yeah, sure. Hello everyone.
Awesome,
Hi. So
awesome.
we're showing the. Okay, there you
We
go.
are we are onto the ship and where you got to it, and is it card number three?
Definitely card number three because I had numbered it incorrectly when I was like back and forth and with it. I was like, oh, so as this progresses, I'm going to forget how to count, might forget how to draw occasionally. This it's going to be a whole a game of losses before you win.
Nice. All right. So talk us through what's going on here. What's going on with the ship?
So this is I was saying to you earlier, it still needs like a day, I think, of just the ship is just like an outline at the moment. But I kind of like the tone. Like it seems to be like a cascade effect as we build the cards. I kind of know what I want to do with them as a group.
Hmm.
So I like the kind of the I was toning in with a kind of pencil effect and taking in all the little details that people were bringing up, like reflections of stars and stuff. Um, and yeah, I think like it feels like I still don't know if there's going to be a color situation in this. Like, what do you think?
I think it needs it. I just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah,
And again,
yeah.
as you
Well,
say, like that's cool, right? Because it
there's
is card number three.
there was actually a just literally today, like literally as I sent you it, randomly I was looking at like shit port paintings and things because I still have like port detail to add to it. There was like this gorgeous painting of the Clyde like sort of ship docks. And it's I can't know this would be a show note situation, but I'll share it. And it's subdued, but it's kind of very gorgeous. And the guy that painted it was known for painting things like moonlight. Like he captured like evening light really well. And I think that would work well with this. So I will add that into the Telegram group chat and we can kind of see what direction that's going in.
Yeah.
But I can now, like, this is what happens with a card. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Like it for 10 seconds, hate it again for a bit. And then I get to a point where I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. This is working for me. I
Yeah.
can put this, we're getting into the direction where I can put this out into the world and like not dip my head in shame and go, yeah, yeah, sure, I did that. It's a process. It's a fucking process. And
Listen,
I think it's just one of those,
you just described how you write a book. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate
yeah.
it. Oh, this is all right. I suppose I can show people. Nope, still hate it. And then you
Nope.
reach a point where you go, oh, fuck it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You're like, well, that there's pieces that I like because of the pandemic and the lockdown and everything. There was things that I was finagling with for a year, and at the end, I was just like, oh, I'll just put it on the website. It's fine. And then once I looked back on it, I was like, yeah, that is it. Love it. Great. Good work, Colin. Fantastic. So as it's just like kind of not getting too into your head about these things. Oh my God, I sound like a drag race drag queen. Don't get in your head. Don't do it.
Well,
Listen to the dolls.
I was gonna say, well, there's if we want to, we do need a drag race reference because like that's the rules. God, what are we gonna
That
do
is
for
the
like
rules.
That is down under. I have some very real concerns. That's not going to be anywhere near as good as people think it is. But
No, really? Well, because
look,
never quite made it to Drag Race Canada.
man, me
But
neither. Yeah,
it seems like it would be more in the vein of UK, but I don't know. And they're getting Kylie in, so I mean, your greatest export is coming to Drag Race.
yeah, yeah. I hope it's enough.
Sorry, Gordon. Australia's second greatest export.
Yeah, I hope it's enough. I don't.
No shade.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, what I was going to say, speaking of it, is one listens to critiques and one is sometimes one's worst critic, because you spent a big part of the week on the house as a card. Shall we? Is there anything else we need to say about the ship? I don't know. Like, in the chat, people are liking it and enjoying the glow. I'm just going to jump back to the ship. Where do people think they would like, if we're going with a sort of tone and splash of color? Where are we thinking for color? Again, no wrong answers. Well, there are, but no data are irrelevant. I don't know. What are you thinking of? Is it like something annoying like the midsail, or is it the rigging? The rigging would be dumb. That is a wrong answer right there, just as an example. What are you thinking?
The whole thing there could be color and the sort of the sunset. Not like it could be that kind of so it has to be drag references and it has to be Pirates of the Caribbean references. When the sun sets, when they just get to David, when the David Jones's locker, and it's like that kind of flash of green kind of thing. It wouldn't be green, but just like a kind of just like a slight kind of vaguely magical effect that isn't too chintzy. It could be the outline of the ship, like that. Outline that in white just because it's still I'm still working on it. But I kind of ended up doing like a little glow effect on it just to kind of pop it out of the sort of the darkness of the image.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
Yeah, it could be that.
Give it a shot.
Be the
but
reflection of the stars.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, all right. Red stars. Yeah. My concern with it being the sunset is that it would obviously fade from like let's assume it's red and grayscale, right?
Yeah.
It would sort of fade. So it might be one of the only cards that has like soft red. So it might look a little odd in dialogue with the others. The outline of the ship for sure is worth looking at. I really like the white outline though. This is why I'm struggling to see where we put the red. Cute. Like, and my next wrong answer would be, well, is the reflection red? And I'm like, no, that's also dumb, Gordon. Shut up.
It's again, it needs a day and then let it marinate and then we can see where we're at with it. And so it is like this cascade effect where I'll work back and then I'll work forward, and then if I don't hate it, everything seems to inform backwards and forwards, which is quite interesting. It's not, I've never done something where it's like a quick succession week to week of producing something. So it is quite interesting to see how it kind of all informs as we go along. So yeah, this
is the animist approach to deck creation, because you show up. That's all you do. Like because we chat about that sometimes in the Telegram group. You don't need to know what happens on card 31, because if you do, you're not allowing the cards to presence, right? Which is to sort of show up in your experience as they happen. So this is how we feel and find it. There's just blending a couple of the things that people are saying in the chat and sort of what you said. An interesting opportunity or option might be, as you said, do the stars red, which means that some of the reflections might be red, and we'll see if that doesn't look too blood soaked, which it might.
It could balance it out as well. If you would have red up top and then a little red in the bottom. That'd be cool. I'll run it through and like try everything to see kind of what sticks, what looks good.
Cool. It also could be because actually these are painted. Like you see, I used to know this. I can't believe I'm blanking on nautical terms, but the metal thing in the bottom right that you tie a ship up to, those are actually often painted red anyway. So
really?
Yeah. So you can see them. But that's one option. I don't know. Like it probably should be the ship because it is a ship card. But like I really like the white outline. It does kind of make it a ghost
Yeah.
ship because it's one of, as you know, one of my favorite cards. And it has to be ship comes in, has to be travel, and it has to have that spirit journey component. So good luck is all I'm going to say.
Thanks.
Uh,
I'm feeling good about this, but like, so I've gotten over the hell of this one, so it feels like it's going to be like a good like day or two, kind of just sort of finishing it off. So we're in the end game for this one. It's looking good.
and I guess not surprisingly, given that it's me, the ship is we're ship forward. Although maybe that is surprising. Why aren't I twink forward? Anyway, I think
It can't be
with the
twink
ship,
forward in every card.
I think we found the universe on this card in a very real way.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. So
Yeah.
yeah, spread it out now. Well, wait till we get to the house card and we'll
Well, it's
see
funny
how
you say that. Let's do it. Now that we found the universe,
Okay.
we are currently homeless in this universe. But tell us your journey so far, your quest to the
Yeah,
Sacred
so
Valley.
I thought this would be in the bag. Like I've got experience doing architecture drawings and interior design and things. So I was like, yeah, cool. And it's the house, like everyone has one. Well, if you're lucky. Totally thought, yep, in the bag, know what I'm doing. But I don't know if it's just that there's so many influences and kind of boxes to check. But I just was like, and then I was like, oh, I have to actually design a house on top of designing a card, on top of drawing it, and then going through different things and then just refining what you're after, which I do kind of know what it is, but it just isn't, it's just not there yet. It's not remote. What you are seeing, this end result. I quite like the again, the color is a bit too vivid, but this is being informed by the ship card. I kind of took yesterday to finish that. I like the kind of not quite pastoral, but like I like the idyllic. And you mentioned Rivendell and this kind of like sanctuary. I like the kind of, there is an opening here that I kind of know which direction I'm going in. Just we're not quite there.
No,
Someone was
sure.
asking in the chat about the skulls, and that is just the inset is just like a placeholder until I
Yeah.
draw out the insets. And also just if I can squeeze a skull in there, I'm gonna fucking do it. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know the layout. What do you think about the layout? Because you were talking about making the view higher so that it was.
I think you've like, because we chatted after middle card. Well, we chatted about it all week, but we chatted after middle card, and I was sort of like pull the drone out a bit more, and we've done that. A couple of things. I don't think it's not good agriculture to have the stream coming down from the terraced hills. Didn't realize you were going to terraced hills. Love it. So
yeah, that's for the Andine. I was saying Andines. Maybe I'm just pronouncing it wrong. And that is like it was like an irrigation kind of. Again, this is also the downside of this is that you end up going on whole like journeys. I didn't know until 2 days, and I don't think I still know how a water wheel works, but now I can like draw at least 4 parts of it. Who needs to do that? I don't know, but it's interesting to kind of get in there and kind of learn the practicalities of it. But it's just I think it's one of these things you need the blocks before you can start building the thing.
Yeah,
I
sure.
guess.
I think it's
the
definitely
whole
closer.
shape of the house isn't working, but it's just to kind of place everything and get a good sense of like the dimension and that kind of even looking at it, I'm just like, that is troubling me.
So you have to find how you'd want to live in that. And the first thing is, and I know it's just like really rough at the moment, but to have like an open room balcony sort of area over the river, I think has that kind of like, oh shit, I would love to like imagine having an open room like over the river. So like you have to find a way, you have to want to live there. Is the way into the house. So there's bits of it, and I know like I actually like the greenhouse in the middle card, the hoop house rather, in the background. What a card needs to be, and again we're just sort of talking about as we move forward with it. It doesn't need the stream coming down from the terraced hills, so you've got more space there. Like being on the river with the little rowboat is enough, but in that sort of green in between there and the terraced hills needs to be some sort of productive garden, because that's the kind of like the final bit of like, God, that would be nice to live there, and or trees. So it actually could be an orchard, but again. I think you need to find your way into like, well, at the moment I don't want to live there. What do I need to live in it?
I don't think, no, I don't even think a sim would survive there at this moment in time. So I will say I do like the little boat, the little rowboat. Like, and again, we're not doing like a continued story, but there seems to be like a development as you go through.
Yeah.
Where like did that come through on the ship? We don't know. It doesn't really, it's not necessary for reading the cards or anything, but it's fun for me to just do it.
Totally.
But yeah, this will look completely different next week, because if I look at that again, I'm gonna just
Scream.
Scream and go into the woods and never come back. So speaking of the woods.
Yeah. So a couple of things in the chat that are good, and I think you'll find your way there as well, is like, I don't necessarily think it needs to be a fully enclosed courtyard, but that's certainly
right.
A thing I like. So if you look at the third card, if you remove the river coming down from the irrigation, you actually have more room in that part of it. So you can kind of embiggen the main part of the house so that it kind of moves further to the mid-right, which gives you more room to kind of like do a 3/4 enclosed or something similar, so that there's almost like the courtyard is also on the river if you do it that way. Or the courtyard can be facing sort of up card instead anyway. But I do think if it does look like there's like a coaching in element to it, you might like it a little bit more, is my thoughts. But yeah, the next step is for you to find like, well, I don't want to live here and I don't live that well. For me, I think having like having an open bit over the river, I think that would make it quite idyllic, but I might be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds good. That, I think I was kind of, I put it over the river, so we're going in that direction definitely. And that little wheel, that little water house, I kind of like you were suggesting, can you make it solar punk without it being too themey? But like, I think the way that the cards are the way they're shaping up is that you could get elements of that.
I think so too.
I mean, I've put it off, but I'm gonna have to learn how fucking permaculture works. So, cheers.
That won't take long.
Just to get like little details in there in the back of the card and up by the end set, so that you have like things filling out the kind of like this sort of, private garden area. Not that this is the garden card, but
no, but it does need it to capture house feel. One of the comments in the chat I quite like is the perspective. We did want to go in that direction to start with, but it's a really good point, like on a feng shui level, that it may not be harmonious enough with the house. So whilst above and drone is right, like maybe give yourself the possibility of sort of like bringing the drone, like staying this far zoomed out, but like bringing it down about 30 feet. So it kind of looks more, it's worth a shot anyway. Like as you're making a kind of solar punky looking house you'd want to live in the Sacred Valley. That means you don't have to be, it doesn't need to be as rigidly isometric. I think it's a good point, but it may solve itself once you draw a house you don't hate.
And it's one of those things as well, is like a lot of my time out in the world is thinking about cool houses. So yeah, it's stumped me, and it's the one that I would have thought least was going to stump me. So there we go.
That's interesting, because like technically we're at the tree, and the tree has stumped me, and I'm like, what? How did?
Oh, really?
Every part. What else do we need to say? Anything else in the chat about house before we move
insets? Do we like a mirrored inset, like with the king up, like, or do we want just an individual? What do we like? I've just used mirrored examples, but I don't know if that's too much on top of everything else that's going in it. What do you think?
I don't know.
No. Again, that's something once it's drawn, it's really not that big of an issue to kind of
You're
slice it in
definitely
half
going to
anyway
need to
because it's a
draw
mirror.
like the mirrored one anyway for the card deck.
And we want big crown, kind of fancy pants, no
Yeah.
sword. Right? Yeah. King of
Yeah.
Hearts. So
So I don't know. It's tough, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know. I don't think any of us know yet. But like draw it mirrored to start with because you're going to need to do it.
yeah,
Right.
and see what
So
happens. See what
yeah.
happens.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. Okay.
We're good. Um, nice. So what do you think what are your first thoughts on the tree?
Well, the tree is one of those, like, just again during lockdown, I was in the woods a lot. That was kind of my escape time. That was kind of my getting back into my own senses. Did a lot of sketching at the beginning of spring and to like sort of the beginning of autumn last year as well. So yeah, I've got like a good, because the thing about drawing trees is that there is no symmetry to it. There's no, like, there is a sense in that it's a structure, but you can't get too kind of uh finicky about, oh, it doesn't, it doesn't look good. Then you just have to kind of fucking do it because it's a natural living thing. I mean, a lot of the things in the cards are, but they don't often adhere to, things like symmetry. And I find that very interesting because it just kind of makes it a little easier to work into an image, I think, overall. So I'm pretty open on it, but I enjoy, obviously, who doesn't love a tree? I mean, if it's anyone's favorite card, it's because it's everyone's favorite card. It's a
What's
good
weird,
card.
yeah. What's weird about that is like I don't have any pictures of other Lenormand treatments of the tree because they're all shit. Like I don't like any of them, and I really looked like, and I think that's where I struggle to start with. Like I generally don't like pine trees. And it's sort of like they're all European, and it's like a pine or an oak, and they're boring. And it's like the trees drawn by people who haven't ever seen a tree before. I don't know. Like I find it repellent. And the tree card, as you say, should be inviting. Like it's health, it's forest bathing, it's all that kind of stuff. It's the literal spine of the world's spiritual traditions, and they're shit.
Yeah.
So what the hell, right?
Yeah, I've got the Lenormand deck, and it's like this kind of thing, and it is like that, just a basic kind of view, but also like the place that I've been going to is like a circle of trees, so that there was like an image in my head of what I could do with that, but then now we're discussing, or we have just before we've come on here discussed sort of other elements that we can add into that, and obviously different, much more maybe interesting trees. Not that interesting. What a boring tree. Can you imagine? But
Next time you go for a walk, you can turn
around
around and be like, "You're all shit.
dull.
You're all filler
Yes,
queens."
trees that are trees that maybe have like a different story than what we as in Europe and in Australia would be used. Well, no, not Australia. Anyway, yes.
So that's kind of funny, right? Like
we're not doing Eurocentric trees.
Well, we need to be a bit like, it is already kind of global anyway. But so I was thinking about that because I'm gonna bring up the my favorite thing, the screen share of Pinterest, and watch as it f's everything up. Anyway. So there's two things I want to talk about first. The first is the tree species. And to get to it, we're going to come down to Chuchuasi. Now, Chuchuasi is an Amazonian master plant. See, look at it. Look at what it's doing. I don't think anyone on Pinterest other than me uses something other than an iPad. So there's we'll watch as we click back. But this is Chuchuasi. And it is a master plant and teaching plant in the Amazon. It's also a canopy tree, so it's enormous. And I think that's really useful when we're talking about tree in the context of other trees. This is one of the beings in the Amazon that allows for all the other ones to grow. And this is one of the plants that I dieted when I was in the Amazon. So Chuchuasi has been deep in me, put it that way. So it's a tree that's a healer and about health and so on. And in Lenormand, the tree card is health. So this is, I think, one of the things that's frustrated me about the Eurocentric cards is like They don't even use willow, which at least you can make aspirin out of. It's like oak or pine, and I'm like, what are you gonna make my car smell nice? What's happening here? By the way, that's impossible. My car stinks because it's a farm vehicle, and it stinks of hay and other crap that I have to buy.
She's a working girl, okay?
Yeah. Now, Gordon complaining about Pinterest. We drink now, right? Yes, and Jason, I also mentioned going into the jungle, so you have to drink twice.
That's 2 shots of whatever you're having.
Right. So this is Chuchuasi as a being, and there's more of them. Like, I've sent you some of them. I don't know if they made it to the board. Let's see. Oh, we're adding new ideas. You try to click outside, it's just going to bring you right on back. So, wait for it to load, because that's the other thing about it. So that's the first thing is healing tree, Chuchuasi, as to where it is. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Chuchuasi in the same way that we've picked the name of certain ships, or Marie Louise, for instance, isn't actually the twink, but she kind of is. So Chuchuasi isn't the tree is the tree, but it also kind of is, right? And I say that because some of the treatments I want us to run down include having it grow out of ruins that are a couple of, 1,000 miles north of where you would typically find Chuchuasi. It's not that it wouldn't grow in Maya areas, but it's my understanding that Chuchuasi doesn't go that far north when it comes to the Amazon. That's a detail that only, well, maybe not only I give a fuck about, but but I do in fact give a fuck about it. Now, before we get to that, here is where you're talking about solar punk and the universe that we're in. I need to definitely show my age, which is 27. This is a screen grab from Quest for Glory 3, which I played in primary school endlessly. Like, I got good enough at playing it from the very beginning that I could finish it in about 5 or so hours. So as a kid in primary school, nights that would last forever, like Christmas Eve, I would go and play this from beginning to end. Now, the sort of penultimate scene involves going to a jungle on this screen. And I don't know if you can tell, there is it's funny, as I was putting this together or Google image searching for Quest for Glory 3, I'm like, is this where the origin of my belief that there is like a master tree that kind of like a tree mother for a whole jungle comes from? Does it come from Quest for Glory 3? It might. Very difficult to say. Now, the reason I'm showing you that one is to sort of set the scene, and we will go, oh, there we go. You literally have to hit back in the browser. What a piece of shit. Is because if I scroll back to, you actually like navigate your character up the tree, right? And you can see him in the bottom right-hand corner there. So I'm not saying exactly this, but when it comes to the tree card, and you were talking about asymmetry, obviously being essential and so on, here's a card where if you feel drawn to it, we're going to look at the ruins in a minute, but if you feel drawn to it, you absolutely can do a giant cosmic tree and use something like a human for scale, like, because the tree has to be health, so it needs to be beautiful and whatever, but it is also the tree of life, it is also the world tree, it is also that kind of like cosmic tree thing. So that's why I'm showing you Quest for Glory stuff. What are your thoughts while I pull up some ruin pictures?
I did have like flashes of people hanging off of like just like branches, but in my head. Also, I will say that this maybe as just like a kids growing up with video games thing. I played Final Fantasy, and in Final Fantasy 9 there was a giant life tree that you have to like scale at some point in the story, and it's very much the same imagery. It would be maybe a little later on. It's a Japanese made game, and it's got that same cool, and it is like gorgeous imagery, and it's all asymmetrical, and it's very organic because it's a giant fucking tree. But yeah, totally. Like maybe this is when you have to just ask yourself how much of your life is informed by video games from when you were 10 years old.
Yeah, because like
I'm looking at you, Lara Croft, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I haven't really played them since. I've been generally too busy. I think Lara Croft, I think the first Tomb Raider was it. I was playing Tomb Raider when 9/11 happened. I was literally on my computer playing Tomb Raider. So that's like that song from South Park, Where Were You? And I'm like, well, since you asked. I was
I
playing
was
Tomb Raider.
playing probably one of the if my Tomb Raider historical information is correct, probably one of the worst Tomb Raiders you were playing as well. So good work.
Yeah. All right. So we had a brief chat about ruins as well, because
Yes.
when you look at the tree needs a context, and it is principally about health, which is why we're going to have a healing tree as the kind of DNA of it. That's what the card signifies. And it's funny. The cards are crap. Like even the historic Lenormand, as we've discussed. I'm just going to bring us back, so I'm not just talking to a screen. The cards are crap. And what's weird about that is when you think about how the tree came to signify health and end up in Lenormand in the first place, it's obviously from coffee ground reading and probably tea leaf, but we know it as coffee ground reading. And so what that means is that the people doing coffee ground reading associated trees with health in a good sense. Like we've had to rediscover and invent entire disciplines like forest bathing to kind of like prove what we used to know, right? So that's what I the more I think about this card, the more it frustrated me, because it's clearly there in the fortune telling history that Europeans very recently, like end of the 18th century, were aware that forests were healing and a tree is association with health and so on. The secondary or additional, I hate the word meaning, signification or implication of the tree is obviously the rate at which it grows, which is to say slowness. And it's not just, so why I like ruins and a tree growing out of them is it's slow, but it's also inexorable. That's the thing that I think is hidden in the meaning when, again, going back to the 18th century, we don't necessarily think of trees as slow as much as we think of them as kind of, unless we cut them down, eternal and inexorable. And for me, if you look at, and we did look at them, a bunch of tree cards, the context in which they're planted is dumb. I don't know what else to say. I did not find a single good Lenormand tree card. And to hit that meaning of slowness, you just kind of have to know it. Slowness and inexorability. Or you can have nature reclaiming the kind of like the vainglory of humans but make it our dimension by having it some kind of exotic, at least to us, ruins. So what do you think?
I honestly thought you were going to say some kind of exotic twink because it sounds yeah, I like that is like so although we're not doing Cambodia, that's kind of one of the like trunks coming out of like that's my kind of end to this. And I was saying to you earlier, like looking at Mayan temples, there is just something pleasing about something that is so still kind of in like Great Neck, that is rigid and again symmetrical against something that's just like raw and natural and no, I hate that word. Just not like they do not mesh, but when you look at them as a piece, any of these photos in the Pinterest board or that you've popped up, it just looks like this is the place for the tree, not so much.
Yeah.
That the tree overpowers these amazing kind of structures, which I think is that, yeah, that kind of speaks to what you're talking about.
Yeah, it does. And
yeah,
it needs to be Maya or similar. Well, again, it's through another dimension, so it needs to be Maya adjacent. Maybe it's the dimension where they all went, because we are talking about healing trees of the Americas. So it's funny when I look at, and I love the Cambodian stuff, right? But that's actually surprisingly rapid, at least in the logic of
really?
trees. Yeah, they grew kind of faster. So if you want like a master Amazonian tree growing out of something, the city needs to like the Maya. And this is really interesting. And I got this from spirits rather than archaeologists, but it tracks. The Maya would abandon their cities, and it's one of the things even before the Spanish showed up. And one of the things that people have tried to work out is why. And there's been all these guesses that tell you something about the the modern day rather than what actually happened. At the moment, we think it's climate change, but it's impossible that that's the case for the simple reason that some of the areas are super abundant in water. So it's not like they ran out of anything. And also the Maya world covered more than one climate. So it's like, well, some of them were in the mountains, some of them by the coast. You can't collapse the whole thing with it. And before that, they thought it was disease. And before that, they thought it was warfare. And there's no evidence for any of these things. What appears to have happened, because the Maya would bury their dead underneath their homes. Once a city became the majority owned or occupied by the dead, they'd move elsewhere. So cities themselves would be buried or given to the dead. So they literally moved cities into the spirit world. What that means for the context of this card is that inexorability and slowness is there because you have entire cities that were intentionally, when I say abandoned, the living gave them to the dead and nature reclaimed them. And that happened 1,000 years ago. So it's not just the disastrous impact of colonialism 500-600 years ago. There is that inexorability and inevitability and slowness that's in the card that is a better match for Maya ruins than Cambodian ruins, which are stunning. Like, again, this is, as we were talking about before, like, you know, the twink can be Guatemalan or Cambodian. I'll take either. But but the tree must be Guatemalan.
I'll squeeze him in there somewhere.
All right. Phrasing. Right. Now, do I need to show any more of these? You get the idea. It's on the Pinterest board. And so on. A giant crystal with the trees growing out of it. Like tree houses of the dead. Very cool. Anything else we want to riff on about trees and ruins? What have you got? What are you thinking?
Well, we briefly discussed sort of viewpoints of what we could do with that. So it was like looking up, looking down, looking just onto it. And I think what I'll just do a bunch of sketches for this one to see what fits, because they're all good options, I think, for what we're discussing, for what the subject matter is. So yeah. I think it's one of those ones where you could do three really, I don't know why I always have three options. You could do three really good cards with three separate angles. So it's really just it's dealer's choice. So
well, like in the way the ship was mine, this one is yours. Like so find the angle, find whether you want it to be a tree that humans can walk around, like, so whether we want to go full fantasy with it, where it's Quest for Glory, Lothlorien kind of shit, or which is obviously fine with me, or if it hints at that, but it's like Chuchuwasi and ruins, and but like as you said, you spent a bunch of time hanging out with trees last year, and it was part of your medicine, so in the good sense, I don't care whether we go Lothlorien, big tree we can walk around in, or tree growing out of ruins. And I think you need to just go and find that. I think you need to go and fuck about and see what comes to you. Yeah.
Nice. I'm just looking at that again. I'm just looking at these ruins because
I think it's going to be ruins. Yeah. We both are. Although I haven't seen, I assume you have because you watch terrible films, but I haven't seen the Tomb Raider reboot. I can't.
Yeah.
You have, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what it was? It was serviceable. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, that's
yeah. I'm as a brief aside, I'm like a fan of old sociopathic, probably a Tory Lara Croft from like the 90s that would shoot a lemur or a person without it, but then they had to give her a conscience because apparently, I mean, I understand not turning her, like changing her from being a sex doll into a human being, but why make someone that's character was just clearly a psychopath into not a psychopath was beyond me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, because yes, we are quietly early Lara Croft stands, however problematic that is. And again, we're back on like hot twinks, but I know, yes, totally. If you look at the original, let's say, it is still, something happened where occasionally, and Pirates of the Caribbean was one of them, and it's within spitting distance of Tomb Raider in terms of launches, something happened where it was almost like, however the shitter the source material, the surprisingly better the film was. Like the original Tomb Raider was kind of good, and it was this problematic, as you like, this controversial is a better word for it, game in the 90s, because even before, well, 20 years before Gamergate, it's principally males playing this improbably proportioned Tory psychopath. And they turned that into an all right film. And anyway, I think that, and ironically, in the first film, they did in fact shoot in Cambodia. But I reckon you're going to end up on the tree coming out of ruins thing, because I think there's a sort of shared affection for that aesthetic there.
Totally. There's a because that means it's not a story, but people, I don't know if everyone isn't that weird if everyone has that kind of, and again, this could just be what you were subjected to as a child. Everyone has like a romantic idea of that. So is that a story, or is that just like what is innate, and who knows? We will find out next week.
As always. What else do we need to talk about with the tree before we talk about songs?
Tree. Okay. What is hold on. We are hearts again, so it's a simpler inset.
Oh, true.
Color, I think. Where would so if we go temple, maybe there could be a pop of color in the temple, but if the temple doesn't feature as heavily as the tree, so the tree would be kind of the main part of the image. So there could be like there's again, it's kind of like the ship where there's options for different areas where we can apply color to it.
Try the trunk. Like Chuchuasi is a kind of reddish tree anyway. Right. And like it cooks down to like a really black and really bitter, but not necessarily bad tea. But yeah, try in the trunk, because it is a reddish tree. But you never know, it could be like stone outline bits as well. But I think it would look kind of cool with trunk, and then you can sort of do, and this might even be the Rivendell Lothlorien nod, if the leaves are kind of silver. So because that gives it a bit of a mystical wink anyway.
This could be, this again, just talking about what it might end up being, could be so there seems to be, as I've said, a cascade effect, but also like you get to the next card, and for me it kind of unlocks elements of the previous card. So this might kind of unlock for me an element of the past card. Again, tune in 23 seconds and you'll find out, because that's how fast the week goes by. Totally. Like I'm feeling like this. That's more like a process that is interesting to me.
I think red trunk, because it is, as you say, heart. So it's a red suit, and if they're center middle, 7 hearts there'll actually be a visual symmetry. If the trunk is sort of, it doesn't necessarily have to be dead center at the bottom, but there's an opportunity to kind of have a sense of that red verticality through it. And we should actually mention the inset. Like 7 is obviously is a changing card, like it's a health card. There's nothing else to say about the inset, the ship. And we have to explain, well, that's sort of like heraldry. It's a health card on a health card.
That's
it's actually very simple. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So for this song, this is gonna suck.
I'm very excited about this.
For this song, we asked around in the Telegram group, which everyone who's watching this should be in anyway, and some good tracks, and then but not quite right. And then I asked there's an actual music room on the Ansible, and I asked there, didn't get much there either. And I think the trouble with this one is it's the same thing with the house card. There are plenty of songs that have tree in the title, but they're not. That's easy. That's not what we're doing here, right? Like, because you can just Google songs about trees.
Sometimes that's what we're doing here, but not all the time.
So, like, And I went down that route, and none of them are there. Because, like, where is the health component? Where is the actual inexorable healing, slow health component for it? So, what have you got? Because that's my preamble to explaining, justifying, dare I say, excusing my choice.
Oh, I can feel it coming. I can feel something coming. So I can feel it in my waters. Mine's is, so I said to you earlier, it's on brand, but it's kind of off brand. So it's Nelly Furtado, and it's a song called Spirit Indestructible. And it's later on in it's like both like after her heyday of like, you know, where she was everywhere. And it is just a song about like the indestructibility of the spirit. And there is a lot of like elements of healing in it. And it also, it's just a total fucking banger. Like it's not like you don't listen to it to meditate. It's like you could probably have a good time in a club with it as well, so it's vitality. It's, and the video is really cool.
Because I was looking
So
for
yeah.
something that I just found them really maudlin. I don't think I know that. I'm sure if I hear it, I know it, but I don't think I know that one.
I don't know that. I think I had to go back when I discovered it. It was after the album was a few years ago, but I discovered it after it had all been released. So it was like a few years after it was out. So I think it was just it didn't go any. The album didn't go anywhere. So, but worth a listen. And also, it's going to be in the Spotify playlist. So,
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to listen to it then, because I was looking for that. I was looking for a kind of indestructibility, but when I realized all the tree things weren't really about that, and I sort of failed. And I'm like, no, I need it to be healing. I need it to be healing.
yeah.
And so I went with, I don't know if you're familiar with Jacare. It is a project by two Italian DJs, like a collab, sort of like a band, but not, because it's like electronic music. So is anything really a band in electro?
Yeah. Oh, that was like Italo disco was a word that was floating around for a couple of like for 10 years. I feel that was all I ever heard about.
Yeah.
And it was electronic Italian DJs essentially.
So these guys come from that world. But this is like a white boy ethno electro music collab, like dance shamanism. It's just like the caucasity of it is it's whiter than white boy summer.
Jesus. Not touching that one with a 10-foot bar.
No, goodness, there is not. Oh, actually we could. Oh my God. We could ironically have that for the garden. But anyway,
so Jacare, what's it called?
Jacare, Jakare is the name of the project. And really the whole project suits it. But I'm going to go with, because having just explained how white it is, I've listened to hours of it, hours and hours and hours, because it was sort of that genre was the background sound to finishing the book. And so I associate listening to that with thinking about the book, which means I'd listen to it on walks. And it's actually really good on walks in nature areas, frankly. But Glass Temple sounds like, put it this way, at least one of the two people in the Jacare project has absolutely done ayahuasca in a correct setting, because it somehow, it doesn't sound like that, but the subsequent creation, which is to say the track called Glass Temple, and there are actual tracks there called like Healing and Otorongo and whatever, and they aren't quite it, but Glass Temple is, because it sounds like it's like a musical response to the sound of wind in the trees, and the kind of it's faster than you'd expect for a tree song, but you can hear in it the sound of sitting with plant medicines and specifically sitting with plant medicines under a really big tree and what have you. So it's absolutely the energy of tree card as Chuchuasi, at least as I experience it. And even though previous, like, yeah, I will stand Dolly, obviously. But this is the first of the tracks that I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Listen, it's got to be done. Like, we literally had Enya last week, and I know there's an embargo on it now, and I'm never to mention her name again. But
yeah,
you know that this is you feel what you feel. Even the name kind of tracks with what we're talking about, like just separate of not heard the song. So it's like it kind of works already as a title. Did you have any other backups? Like where what were you
No,
was
but
there
there's some real good stuff.
worse
Like,
in the category going on?
well, so funnily enough, so Mordecai's suggesting like Portishead kind of, and I get that. Like Massive Attack, like I get.
Which port said?
Well, it's in the they're in
Oh,
the
okay.
chat, but that's a good call, and they can both. I think we should add them to the Spotify playlist anyway, because that's a pretty good energy. That's like a slow healing energy. That's cool. I like that.
I was kind of messing around with like there were things just didn't quite fit. So it was like Big Yellow Taxi,
Oh yeah.
Joni Mitchell, and something. Oh, have you ever heard of Zoe Keating? This was more of so I wasn't going to use it because she is it's some kind of wood instrument. So and it's all very kind of the album's called Into the Woods, and it's got. I think they used it a lot on TV for like 5 years, so that's how I maybe
Ah,
picked it
yeah, yeah,
up.
yeah.
So you'd maybe she's in with like the Neil Gaiman set, like that kind of.
Oh right.
Maybe there were dreadlocks at one point.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
sure, but the
About
music
10
was really
years ago,
cool.
you would have been able to buy the
Yeah.
CD at Starbucks. That kind of shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would have been recommended potentially by me at the till. Yeah. Okay. I'll go. But just a quick question. Can you go back into the live chat once the video of YouTube on the YouTube once we're done? Does that just become comments?
Yeah, you can't. You mean can you read it back or?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can read. Well, you can watch it back from this part. But yeah, so you're trying to get additional songs.
Oh, Glory. Oh, well, no. Right. A cult fan, you are blocked and reported because you just picked a song that I was going to use for another
I
card,
know,
and I'm
I
not
know.
having
You
that. I'm not having
you
that.
sailed pretty close to a couple of mine too, and I'm like, that's it.
We're all cancelled now. Get everyone, right? Get out. Come on, leave. Come on. No, yeah, I love that song. That's one of my favorites. Anyway, but yeah, I'm into that kind of. I remember you did like an album or songs of the year blog post once, and it was
Yeah, no, I
extensive.
used
It had
to.
like
Back when I was cool, I would do annual roundups of the music I like.
yeah,
But that's when I went
and
for Time Out and shit. That was easy.
one of
But
them was like one of them was called Jungle as a Shapeshifter, and I swear to God, I ran through and I just like picked out ones and I was like, all right, I'll try that. And I use it. It's so good. And even maybe, I don't know, it doesn't really work as this because it's well, no, it's more, oh, I don't know. But like that, so that kind of music where it is just like instrumental and that kind of goes in a different direction. But that kind of stuff is all in up for play. Like it's not, there's nothing to be ashamed about. I mean, let me listen to it and then I might change my mind.
exactly,
Like,
exactly.
if I get out of here, this is like 3 minutes of hell. I'm logging back onto YouTube. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, anything else?
I think that's good. I think this one is. I'm not going to say it's in the bag because I felt that way last week. But I feel
Right.
like this one builds on that one. And again, and this also, I know initially it's designed as like sort of a board game, kind of almost before maybe without
Yep.
the board. So there is an element of you are going inland as you go through the cards. So maybe that's what maybe this is the resonance where I'm like I have to have the first one and then the next one and then by the time I get to number three I have number one and then by the time I get to number eight I have number two and it all kind of pans together. So it's a very interesting process. And I will be listening to I was going to say I'll be
Jakari.
listening to
Yeah.
Jakari as I figure it out. I'll be posting the sketch ideas in the Telegram group
Obviously, very
and on my
good.
Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's pretty good.
Nice one. I am going to see if I can't, with one screen, switch off the live stream. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions as ever, particularly the song ones. Like, I was getting a bit, I don't want to say like snooty, that's the wrong word. I was potentially overconfident in my song choices until this card. And I like my choice, the Jakari choice. but I'm surprised I didn't think of something like Portishead or Massive Attack or something, because we were literally talking about that era. We were just talking about Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh well, that's us. And guys in the chat, thanks very much, and see you next week.
Bye, guys.